Well, from practice reports thus far, you said 5 to go. That means there's been about
10.
10 or so. So 15, yeah, just like bull practice. 15's the number. So what has stood out to you?
There's been quite a few things, right, Mark? I think first and foremost, I think all eyes point to Cam Ward in the quarterback position, right? I think with Cam Ward, the biggest thing that I think everyone has either been hearing or seeing firsthand, whether it's players on the team, coaches, or just people you talk to in the media, is just the charisma and the attitude that Cam Ward carries, the leadership qualities he brings to the table. I think a lot of people were, for the most part, expecting a lot of the highlights and things that we've been able to hear about practice, as far as from a physical standpoint of what he brings to the table. Because you got to remember, this is a guy that at one point declared for the NFL draft, decided to take his name out of the draft and come to the University of Miami. So this is a big opportunity for him. He's putting a lot on his shoulders, in particular for himself, in order to propel himself to the next level in the NFL. So I think it's the mentality. I think it's the leadership of what he's able to do, bringing these guys together a little bit more closer than the last quarterback did, being able to get a lot more guys involved. And this is going to be an offense that is really going to go vertical this year. I know that was a thing of the past where we thought we would go vertical, but with some of the weapons we're starting to see and hear in practice, and you got a guy in Cam Ward, you got to seize every opportunity in front of you. And this being Mario Cristobal's third year, we're going to have to get it done with the easy schedule we have ahead of us this year.
So with them going more vertical, most likely, with them being hopefully based on that more explosive, do you think that they're going to just flat out throw the ball more, or it's just going to be more vertical shots when they do throw the ball?
I think it's going to have to be a little bit of both, right, Mark? First and foremost, Mario Cristobal in the past, he likes to keep a balanced offense, usually 50-50, or in most cases, you're going to primarily run the football. When you have a guy at the head coach who is specific with the offensive line like Mario, and then you got a right-hand man in Alex Mirabal, your offensive line is going to be your strength. And a lot of times you're going to want to rely on that running game. Well, when you bring in a guy like Cam Ward, you don't necessarily have to do that anymore. And then when you look at that one running back room, we'll talk a little bit more in depth with this later on, but that running back room is a little bit more depleted than it was last year. You have guys like Don Chaney, who ended up transferring to Louisville. You have a guy in Jay Allen who transferred from another program who is currently injured and has not been a part of spring. You have your number one running back last year in Mark Fletcher, who is also coming off an injury, who also hasn't been a part of spring. So for the most part, all these running backs that you're hearing through spring right now, playing with your first team offensive line, playing with your star quarterback in Cam Ward and your receivers, are mostly true freshman guys that have literally only been with the program this spring. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. And it's going to be a running back by committee. And I think for the most part, when you have a guy like Cam Ward, you're going to want to bring as many arsenal and weapons that you can possibly for the guy. And once we talk a little bit about more in this transfer portal, I expect possible another wide receiver and definitely a big time running back if they end up hitting the portal, because we just don't have that dominant veteran leadership running back guy that we are used to having in the past. And you can never be too deep at running back. We've seen time and time again in the last 3 or 4 years that when we think we are deep at running back before the season starts, it quickly gets depleted and we're down to our third and fourth guy. But I do think a guy like Elijah Lofton, who has probably been the name that has been talked about the most other than Cam Ward throughout spring, he's going to be a young man to look out for in that position, not only at running back, but at, tight end, split out at wide receiver. This is a young man that's going to be playing multiple positions for Miami, and I think he could definitely help the role of the running back room at times. A lot of fans were expecting Romello Height to be a Miami Hurricane. He ended up trolling Manny Diaz and the fans. A lot of people remember the ultimate feet on the chair picture. He ends up trolling Miami, commits to Auburn, doesn't do anything at Auburn, transfers from Auburn to USC, has played at USC this past season, and is now in the portal again, and is going to be making a visit to Coral Gables this weekend for a visit with the University of Miami, and a lot of fans are very upset right now because all they can think of is when Romello Heights spurned the Miami Hurricanes when Manny Diaz was the head coach. And we don't need him because he spurned the Canes and we have too many pass rushers. Well, guess what, Mark? This is where numbers really come in play, in my opinion. I was really looking at this. And first and foremost, we don't know how healthy Nigel Kelly is. He hasn't practiced all spring. We're hoping he gets back for fall and is fully healthy. But that's a guy that you can't 100% count on yet, right? Then you have Akeem Mesidor, who, again, has never been fully healthy as a University of Miami Hurricane. He is currently healthy now, but he's not even practicing full go, Mark, because he's waiting on Adidas cleats, specially made for him because he had foot surgery on both of his feet this past offseason, and he needs special cleats from Adidas in order to literally play on the field currently. So even though he is fully healthy right now, he can't do any football drills against someone else because he doesn't have any cleats that fit his feet currently. So he's got 30 more days to wait from Adidas to get cleats in. So that's another guy that has not really been practicing spring. And from a recent interview, when he is able to play football, that would be a full calendar year of him not playing football, Mark. So that's another key guy that we are relying on heavy to contribute right away, especially first game against Florida, that you want to rely on. So between Nigel Kelly and Akeem Mesidor, you still don't know if those guys are going to be fully 100% ready to go, if they're going to be the guys that you expect them to be against Florida week 1. And that's a game that you really have to capitalize and make sure you win. And that's where Romello Height comes in. And if you really look at his numbers, Mark, you look at last season, and I mentioned Akeem Mesidor and I mentioned Nigel Kelly. We had two guys on the roster last football season that had more sacks than Romello Height last year. So Romello Height, give you in his stats as a USC Trojan last year, he had 21 total tackles and he had 4 sacks. Okay, and from a Miami Hurricane fan base, from a fan that's salty about the situation that happened with Romello and saying, hey, we don't need him. Well, let's just go take a look at what Miami's defensive line guys did this past season. And when you do that, unfortunately, Ruben Bain is the only defensive lineman on our team that has better numbers than Romello Height. Francisco Magnoa, who was our starting middle linebacker this past season, had more tackles and more sacks than Romello Height. Our next guy up in Branson Dean, who was a transfer, who is no longer a part of the program, only had 2.5 sacks and 18 tackles. So from a number standpoint, that gives you an idea of what type of guy Romello Height could possibly contribute to this team. Do I expect Romello Height to be, a dominant guy that we're going to lean on heavily? No, I think he is more of a rotational type of player that can definitely help contribute to this team. Do I expect him to be a Hurricane? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that he's visiting the program and he's a guy that's been linked to Miami for several months now should tell you a lot. And just from a number standpoint, Leonard Taylor, see number 13 right there, the big-time 5-star that all of us loved at the University of Miami, he did not do as good as Romello Height this past season. So Romello Height, Leonard Taylor, it's kind of a toss-up, and you're not really paying much for him, in my opinion, from an NIL perspective.
So I'm sorry, Brad. After Hurricane Bain at 7.5 sacks, who did you say is back that has any kind of production rushing the pass?
So Francisco Magnoa, who is our starting middle linebacker, he also had 7.5 sacks.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. So other than him, as far as from a defensive line standpoint, it would be Jared Harrison Hunt, who has 2 sacks.
Yeah.
Yep. Other than that, Branson Dean, who has 2.5 right there, he is no longer with the team. So you really don't have any returning production to really capitalize, to really say you don't need a guy like Romello Height. I think Elijah Austin is going to be a guy heavily relied on this football team this year, and I have a lot of high expectations for him. But you can never get enough pass rushers. And Mario has made it very clear that when that third, fourth quarter hits, you want to bring in fresh guys that can constantly be able to create pressure on that quarterback. And Romello Height, even if he's only playing 10 to 15, 20 snaps a game, and you're able to bring him in those crucial moments, that could definitely help a football team. So that is a guy to watch out for.
Okay, Brad. One more time, anything there at Kane's Insight that people need to lock in on?
No, not at all, man. Like I said, we continue to bring out great content. D Money and Peter Reese have gone full throttle with the webpage lately, especially on YouTube. So we're bringing out content every single day now. So make sure you check in on Kane's Insight on YouTube. We're constantly either bringing you up to date on the recent practices. We have personal player interviews that you can't find anywhere else, and then any fans that will be able to make the spring game. We also have a special event that will be going on right after the spring game with some more players on the football team and some special guests as well. But that's about it, man. Kane's Insight. We try to do our best to give you the best coverage each and every single day.
Falconer taking us home with this one. Go to U of M and go to the NFL or make it in Miami. There
I
it
like
is.
it. I like it.
Brad, so much appreciate you being here for us, making this work.
Anytime. Someone asked about commitments. I didn't really talk any recruiting on the show. I know a lot of people like when I talk recruiting. Just to give you an idea, I would say a few nuggets. So first and foremost, Alvin A. Train Henderson, a young man that I've talked to several times off air. He was flirting around possibly making a commitment around April 1st. That obviously didn't happen. It's a Auburn, Florida State, Miami battle. But if I had to not really guess, but I'm really confident in this, and I think Alvin Henderson's probably going to end up picking Auburn. We ended up landing Gerald Pringle, who out of Armwood is one of the best running backs in the nation, in my opinion. It was really a big home run for us. Getting someone like Pringle in our running back room very early, I think the staff is going to probably go after a running back with a little bit more size and weight under them. So with that being said, some other names to look out for is obviously Byron Lewis out of American Heritage, who Miami has done an excellent job of keeping, close relationship with. That's more of a Florida State Miami battle. You also have Shakai Mills Knight out of Tennessee, who is once a Canadian whose uncle was Usain Bolt. So this is a guy that is 6'1", over 200 pounds, and can run with speed and drop the shoulder. The only problem with him is he hasn't played much American football. So I think the staff is going to continue to do what they can to keep that relationship close and see how this senior year really works out for Shakai up in Tennessee to really pull the trigger on him. And then you have Osman Kruma. I believe he's from Georgia. He's another guy that's over 6 foot, 200 pounds. He is trying to get to Miami this weekend. It's not 100% certain that he is going to be here this weekend, but he is a guy that Miami is continuously to look out for. So as far as the running back position, those are some names to look out. Other than that, there isn't really other names I could say at this moment. Gavin Nix, another linebacker from IMG, is going to be visiting this weekend. You ended up not landing TJ Alford out of Vero Beach, who ended up committing to Ohio State last week. So that's going to bring in some other linebacker opportunities to really focus on. But again, as we know, recruiting is never over, especially with guys that are committed to Ohio State. So I wouldn't say that Alford commitment to Ohio State is 100% locked in. We've been able to flip guys from Ohio State in past recruiting cycles, and it wouldn't shock me if this happens again. So just watch out for that till the end of recruitment for him. But, man, recruiting is going to continue to pick up. I think the loafers will get put on probably once or twice in the next 3 weeks. You have a couple guys that I think they're going to really lock down, some under-the-radar guys that will end up with time getting more rating, to Luke Nickel, Derek Plaz, and some of these other guys we were able to lock down. So we'll see what happens, man. But as we know with Mario Cristobal at the head coach position, you can never count us out in recruiting, man. So gear up, and it's going to be a big one.